LBC weather. Chilly tonight, rain and sleet moving across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England. Clear intervals and some wintry showers elsewhere, and a low of -1. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Thomas Watt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, the big story today, and it's a sombre story, it's a sobering story, it's a story we should all think about, is, of course, that it is the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by the Red Army. And we will, at 6:30, go direct to Auschwitz and speak to one of our reporters who's been there today for the ceremonies and the service, and we'll reflect upon that. Closer to home, tomorrow marks a very big day. I don't think Boris Johnson wanted to take very big decisions early into his 5-year term as Prime Minister. After all, he's got Brexit to get on with. We are expecting a decision tomorrow morning as to whether our 5G network will be open to Huawei, the Chinese conglomerate. They've been involved in business in this country since 2003. And ever since, almost the start, there have been voices in America and Australia telling us we shouldn't do this. But Prime Minister after Prime Minister appears to have been very pro building up our relations with China on business at all levels. We're expecting Boris to make this decision tomorrow morning. And joining me is LBC's Westminster correspondent, Ben Kentish. Ben, politically, this has been the talk of the town today.
It has, and it's, as you said, ahead of that key National Security Council meeting, we think tomorrow morning, likely to be followed by a statement in the House of Commons. But of course, this is not a new issue. This is something that Theresa May delayed back in the summer because of splits in her cabinet. Gavin Williamson was famously sacked after allegations that he had leaked concerns about this. But it does seem to be coming to a crunch tomorrow. Boris Johnson has got the type of decision that I suspect he hates, because whatever the outcome, a lot of people are going to be very unhappy with him. But certainly hints from the government today is that they are going to allow some involvement of Huawei in the UK's 5G networks, but probably a limited one, and probably with a caveat that there has to be some sort of market cap on the access they have so that they don't get too dominant here in the UK.
Yes, it struck me when Gavin Williamson was sacked, and it was directly over this issue, that we were almost back to the Westland crisis of 1986, where a decision had to be made, and that was to do with helicopters. Do we go a European route or an American route? And it's kind of, we're sticking with China, and there are many, including a former Prime Minister, senior public figures in this country who are now working for the Chinese in one way or another, and Gavin Williamson ran straight into them. Boris Johnson did make a comment, did he not, on this earlier on today?
He did. He seemed to hint that there was a way of involving Huawei.
Doing a little bit,
exactly.
But not too much.
He said there was potential for a strategic win, and that there did not need to be a negation of national security in order to have this network. Like the 5G providers are keen for it to go ahead, because actually those Huawei involvement is already in the UK. There are 4 5G networks and all of them use Huawei, so they're pressurising the government not to ban it completely. That said, senior ministers like Priti Patel and Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, have concern about this. Very senior Conservative MPs, Ian Duncan-Smith today saying it would be utterly bizarre if it went ahead. Tom Tugendhat saying it would nest a dragon in our crucial national infrastructure. But more worryingly for Boris Johnson, of course, is the United States position on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, making the point is that only nations that protect their data will be sovereign.
Absolutely. He said it would be a momentous decision for the UK. Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened to end security cooperation with the UK if this goes ahead. But there was a slight hope for Boris Johnson today. US officials suggesting that they did see it as critical what part of the network Huawei was given access to. Just suggesting possibly, and this will be leapt on by our government, I'm sure, that if it doesn't affect the core of the network, as we think it won't, then they might just
room for compromise. We'll see. Ben, thank you. Well, Ben talked about the USA, and shortly before I came on air, I spoke to the former 2-term governor of Florida, Rick Scott. He's now a Republican senator. As we speak, he's sitting in the impeachment trial in the Senate. He's a close personal friend of President Trump, and that, I think, is relevant. This was the conversation I had with Rick Scott 20 minutes ago.
First off, here's what we know about Huawei. The CEO was a member of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Mm-hmm. We know that they've been subsidized significantly by the Chinese government, and we know they want to undercut all the competition and control 5G. That's what we know. Our concern is that, as you know, Chinese companies are required to help the Chinese government with intelligence work, things like that. They've got to make sure that they're a partner with the government. So what we're concerned about is we know we're not going to be using Huawei in this country because we're concerned about the security risk. But we also are concerned: are we going to be able to share with other countries like the UK, Canada, Australia, those that we all work together, Japan? Are we going to be able to share our intelligence if these other countries go in the way of Huawei? Now, it's not just, and by the way, it's not just intelligence work. It's your individual information. Nigel, do you want everybody to know all your personal information? Do you want the Chinese government to be able to surveil you? I'm sure they don't think you're the best. You're not a big promoter of China, as far as I can tell. So
well, I think in my case that may well be right. But we're assured. But we've been assured.
And there's plenty of alternatives. Why are we doing this,
Rick? We've been assured ever since Tony Blair's time, and Huawei first got seriously involved in the UK back in 2003. We've been assured again and again and again that actually there are safeguards and protections in place that mean our personal data will be secure.
But Nigel, how can they do that? I mean, this is the Chinese government. We don't know. We don't even know who owns this company. There's no public information about who owns it. We know they've been subsidized completely by the Chinese government. We know that you're required, if you're a Chinese company, to work with Chinese intelligence agency. Why would we take the risk? And there's alternatives. There's a Swedish company, Ericsson. There's Nokia in Finland. There's plenty of alternatives out there. So why take the risk with? I mean, you as an individual every day think a little bit more about your own information, and so I think that's something everybody has to think about. But on top of that, if the United States actually believes and has that, and there's others, Australia's already said no to Huawei.
I know.
If countries like this say no, then you got to think about it.
Well, this is really important because, as you know, we're just a few days away from Brexit finally happening after all these years of being stuck. And one of the hopes, of course, is that our relationship with the USA, which is strong already, but can actually get better in terms of trade deals and everything else. Is it possible that if the British government went down the direction of using Huawei for the 5G network, could this imperil trade negotiations and much of our future relationship?
Well, first off, you hope not, because I think the United States is looking at the same thing. With Brexit, there's a bigger opportunity for American companies and British companies to do more business together. It'll be way easier to do business together. There's a complete commitment to get a trade deal done, and I hope this doesn't hurt our ability to do that. So I hope Prime Minister Johnson, looks at this seriously, because it's not only intelligence sharing, but it's also your individual information.
And finally, Senator Scott, you're about to go back into the Senate. You are one of the jurors in this impeachment trial of the president. Tell me, how long will this process last? And what's the general sense amongst the American public about these impeachment hearings? It's
boring. I try to get home every weekend, and I was home yesterday and part of Saturday. Nobody brings up this, other than people think it's ridiculous. I think the White House team just kneecapped Adam Schiff on Saturday, because they showed that it's a partisan charade. And you know what, Nigel, the fascinating thing to me is, why are they all committed to defending Joe Biden? Joe Biden, when he's vice president, his son gets a job making, and I'm sure everybody in the UK does this, $83,000 a month to do something you have no experience in. And so that's what happened with Hunter Biden. And then Joe Biden gets the prosecutor that was investigating that company fired. And why would the Democrats go defend Joe Biden? I don't get it.
Well, I think
we're going to have a few more days of this, so we'll see what happens.
I think it's called politics, and I'm sure that's how most people will view it.
Very partisan.
Well, that was Senator Rick Scott of Florida, friend of Donald Trump's, and, he's banging the Trump. He's saying Huawei would be a big mistake. He makes the point, why take the risk? Why take the risk that a company that is very close to the Chinese government, possibly even a front for the Chinese government, why would we take that risk with our data, with our security? Why would we imperil our relationship with America, Australia, Canada and New Zealand, none of whom will operate with Huawei? And in the case of Australia, of course, an economy very closely tied to China. But in terms of data, in terms of telecommunications, they firmly, in 2012, said no and show no sign of changing their mind. Boris, this is a huge decision. He will have the civil service. He will have former prime ministers. He will have big businesses all telling him it's a great idea. Many of them are on the UK advisory board of Huawei. Yeah, former senior civil servants and big business people, all pro-EU, of course, as well. And David Cameron, oh yes, the former Prime Minister, he is an official interlocutor between the Chinese and British governments, and he's raising money for a big Chinese fund. The pressures will be all on Boris to say yes. Ben Kentish, our Westminster correspondent, indicated he'll give Huawei a little bit, but we'll be told they haven't got access to the core. It'll be half in and half out if he does that. I'm asking you, what should Boris do? I'm saying it's got to be no way Huawei. That's my view. What does Chris in Archway make of this? Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Go for it, Nigel. This is all about commercial rights. Huawei have the best 5G in the world. Mm-hmm. If an American company had the same technology, America spies on Britain. They all spy on each other. You know that, Nigel. Trump is a protectionist. It's the same with Airbus, finding Airbus, because Boeing's in massive trouble at the moment. Boeing is massively subsidised by the American military. This is all about commercial rights.
Chris, this is not about American commercial rights, because as I understand it right now, there is not actually a viable American company that would bid for this. But companies like Nokia and Ericsson would bid for this. And so this is not about American commerce. Chris, I'm going to put it to you, this is bigger. This is about the closest intelligence sharing partnership in the world. It's called the Five Eyes Partnership. And if Boris Johnson sticks with the establishment view in this country, are we not, Chris, putting that at risk for no benefit?
No, Nigel. You profess to be a capitalist. I'm a capitalist. It's a free market. America professes to be a free market, but it's protectionist society. Nokia have not got the technical knowledge of Huawei. Huawei is the best 5G in the world. If this country wants to be the best, it has to have the best equipment.
I see.
And
So, Chris,
Chinese,
Chris, do we put the best equipment above national security?
What national security? That's pie in the sky. America have been spying on Britain for years.
But America may spy on Britain and we may spy on them. We all spy on each other. What we don't have is access to all of our data.
Yeah, Nigel, I don't believe that. Nigel, the same with the power plants. They built no power plants in this country. The only ones who can build it now were the French and the Chinese, and they pulled out. Yeah. This country was great at everything.
Let me assure you, on the power station, they got a very good deal from former Chancellor George Osborne. All right, well, Chris sees no problem at all. I say, no way, Huawei. What do you think? Call me on 0345 6060 973. It is now 18 minutes past 6. Time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
The government says people who've returned to the UK from Wuhan in China should self-isolate, even if they have no symptoms of coronavirus. A US prosecutor has accused Prince Andrew of providing zero cooperation to the Jeffrey Epstein inquiry. Boris Johnson has pledged to stamp out the virus of anti-Semitism at an event to mark Holocaust Memorial Day. Rain across the north with clear spells further south, a low of -1.
LBC.
Morning, robot.
What are your instructions?
Start with the invoices, then crack on with the expenses.
Why not use Xero? Your bills and receipts are easy to capture and get stored automatically.
If I'm using Xero for my books, I need you for...
Karaoke? Daisy.
No thanks.
Manage your accounts easily with Xero. Visit xero.com.
This is LBC.
That first glorious sip of the holiday as you recline into the sky. Tempting? With flights from just £369, it's even more tempting. The Emirates sale, now on. Visit emirates.co.uk. Fly Emirates. Fly better. Booked by the 31st of January 2020. Limited availability, terms, conditions and fare exclusions apply.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Now you can get average speeds of 63 megabits per second of super-fast fibre broadband for only £20 a month for selected pay monthly customers. Just one of the amazing offers in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or in-store today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Prices may change. 18-month term subject to credit acceptance and availability. Ends 30th of January. 61% of Superfast 2 customers receive sync speed above 63 megabits per second. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
Hello? It's time you swapped your daily grind for some sun, sea, and salsa. Sangria, sun lounger, siesta, salsa, the dip, sandal, suntan lotion. We've done salsa, ain't we? In the Seychelles, Spain, or anywhere else in the world at surprisingly low prices. When you need a holiday, it's time to Travel Republic. Book with confidence at Toll Protected.
The birthday cake didn't arrive in time. The centerpieces never made it to the wedding. And by the time the brass band got to their concert, everyone had left. Breakdowns are rubbish, especially when you run a business. So when we make vans at Volkswagen, we make them as reliable as possible, which is why we've just won Most Reliable Van Maker at the Fleet News FN50 Awards. Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles, working with you. Visit Fleet News for full award criteria.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
The National Security Council meets tomorrow morning and Boris Johnson will make an announcement about our future 5G network plans and whether Huawei are involved. Our closest friends in the world, Australia, America, have banned them completely from their digital cyber infrastructure. They've already been involved to some extent in ours. Are we going to go a whole load further? Is there going to be, as was suggested to us earlier, some sort of compromise where they do a little bit but not a lot? The sort of classic British government, let's try and please everybody and finish up pleasing nobody. Boris Johnson was questioned on this today. This is what he had to say.
I think there's a very, very important strategic win for the UK. The way forward for us, clearly, is to have a system that delivers for people in this country the kind of consumer benefits that they want through 5G technology or whatever, but does not in any way compromise our critical national infrastructure, our security, or jeopardize our ability to work together with other intelligence powers around the world. So the Five Eyes security relationships we have, we've got to keep them strong and safe.
Sounds like he wants to have his cake and eat it. Sounds like they are going to have some involvement in this, and if they do, how can you guarantee, Boris? How can you guarantee that our data will be secure? David says, China, having all our info. No, thank you. Kathy says, Boris, just say no to Huawei. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Strong views on this. Do you know what? This decision will tell you what this government is going to be for the next 5 years. Because this is about, do we continue with business as normal? Is this a government in the shape of Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May? Is it business as usual? Is it business as usual where big politics and big business and the civil service all get together and decide what's to be done? Or are we about to see a radical new government who says we are going to put national security in the interests of our people first? It is a massive decision. David is calling from Uxbridge. Good evening, David.
Yeah, hi, Nigel. You know, I think you have to look at the bigger picture here. And China...
What could be bigger than national security, David? Sorry.
Well, yeah, you know, that's a debatable point. You know, our intelligence services are mixed about that. But what I want to say really is something about that China's a rise in, it's going to overtake America within 10 years. It's going to be, and it's what's freaking America out is the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, and technology. And this is, in America, this really scares them. And okay, they don't have a direct competitor, but they don't want that rise. And Britain has to think about, does it want to put all its eggs in the American basket? I know you're very connected over there, Nigel, and that's, you see Brexit as an Atlanticist, and many in the Tory party that, but Britain has to be very careful not to put all its eggs in the American basket here. And, it's going to have a good relationship with China. It's going to have, the artificial intelligence, the technology, the Chinese, it's already here. And, I think it would, it'd be a sensible decision.
David, forget my involvement and connections in America. Let me put this point to you. America is our closest and most vital military ally. America is the country with whom we share the most important intelligence to protect us against global terrorism and things like that. America is the biggest foreign investor in this country. We are the biggest foreign investor in the USA. Why would we risk that relationship by doing a deal with a company that not only do they think are unacceptable, but our friends in Australia, Canada and New Zealand do as well? Why do that?
But are we risking it? Trump,
yes.
He's playing a game of poker here, and Trump could be out of office in November. So we have to think of the long game here as well. And as I say, I don't think we should...
Let me assure you, David, that even if a Democrat was to win the White House in November, which I don't believe for a moment is going to happen, but even if they did, the position of Congress on this is absolutely clear. They actually indicted Huawei back in 2019. So, David, I do understand, but China... it seems to me, yes, of course, China is huge. China is growing. George Osborne went to China and said, we're going to be your best trading partner in the world. I understand economically we can't ignore China, but I think this is a matter of strategy. David, thank you for your call, for your thoughts. Charlie is a brand new caller to LBC from Basildon. Welcome to LBC, Charlie.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering why we need to outsource this type of infrastructure if the infrastructure is already there with the likes of O2 and EE across several cities across the UK.
Well, no, they're the people that use the networks. They're the people that get licenses. And by the way, I'm not the most technical fella on earth, but they're the companies that have a license to use the networks. It's the creation of the networks that we're talking about, and apparently we haven't got the ability to do this properly in this country, and I'm told even America isn't really up to it at this moment in time.
Well, through advertisement, it seems that O2 have already got it. It's just a bit of false advertisement, really.
Well, isn't the point about 5G, Charlie, that everything speeds up quite extraordinarily, so you could argue, do we need to move on? But the world moves on, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But why advertise something that isn't there?
So you're saying that O2 are saying we've got 5G already?
Yeah, they said they've got it across 16 major cities across the UK. I know that Slough is one of them, which is their head office location. Mm-hmm. And I know that Central London's another one.
All right.
I'm not sure of the others.
Charlie, I'm going to be straight with you. I haven't got a clue. I do not know. Somebody out there who understands this, who is a telephone technology expert, call me and tell me, is Charlie right? Are O2 offering 5G services in Slough and elsewhere at the moment? If they are, how and why can't they extend it further? Charlie, thanks for the call. And, I just don't know the answer to that. James is another new caller to LBC, calling from Cheshire. James, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you, sir?
I am well, but I really do think this is a big decision that will tell us a lot about Boris Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the major concern with Huawei. And I think Charlie touched on it briefly what I was going to say, is that Huawei is so integrated into our lives at the minute. So, down the road, my BT cabinet is Huawei technology. Mm-hmm. And I know you were saying about the licenses, but it's still got Chinese chipsets. And there's been known vulnerabilities, historically where infrastructure or technology coming out of Chinese is exploitable. So when you look at other larger companies, like Hewlett Packard and Lenovo, all their servers, all their infrastructure is made in China. So I think the issue is already here. And I just think, because it's 5G, it's a hot topic at the minute, it's getting everyone's attention. But back to sort of Charlie's point, I think the issue is already present with us. And as long as we can control and regulate that data to mitigate the privacy concern, then, as long as we can keep a lock and key on that information, then, we shouldn't really have a concern about using their technology.
Well, James, you made that point, as did Charlie before. And yes, he's absolutely right. O2 has switched on 5G, and they did so in a number of cities on the last day of 2019. Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Liverpool, Newcastle, Bradford, Sheffield, Coventry, Nottingham, Norwich, Bristol, Derby and Stoke. So it's already been rolled out partially by O2. But you make the point that already lots and lots of Chinese hardware and software is involved in our systems. But, James, if we were to make a decision that the extent to which they were involved already had been a strategic mistake, that would be an argument for not going on further, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would say so, yes. I mean, I can see the political investment on both sides, but, you do make a compelling point.
All right, no, listen, James, it's a difficult one. Their involvement is huge already. But just, I'll leave you listeners with this thought. Australia, which has been in economic terms the most pro-China country in the world, they do not want this company anywhere near their telecommunications systems. That's something that should give us pause for thought. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It is 6:30. Time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The government says anyone who's returned from Wuhan in China at the centre of the coronavirus outbreak should self-isolate. Ministers say they're working to get British people out of the affected area. A prosecutor overseeing the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation says Prince Andrew has so far failed to cooperate. The Duke of York stepped back from duties last year over his friendship with the convicted sex offender. More than 200 Holocaust survivors have returned to Auschwitz to mark 75 years since the Nazi death camp was liberated. Survivors were joined by dignitaries and leaders from around the world to pay tribute to victims of the Holocaust. LBC weather. Chilly tonight, rain and sleet across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and the north of England. Clearer spells and some wintry showers elsewhere. A low of -1.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7.
An exclusive and fascinating interview with a police officer who was very much in the headlines last week. PC Stuart Alton, who was doing what's called a routine stop, as it were, when he was attacked and suffered multiple stab wounds to the head. The police officer at the heart of it is with me now.
Drag him back into the van. We're having a bit of a scuffle in the doorway. Breaks free of me, literally dives across his van, grabs a machete and starts chopping up my head. I draw my taser, fire it once. The first activation doesn't work. Managed to get the second shot in as he's swinging towards me.
I read, and I think I've said, that possibly the taser saved your life.
Yes, without that taser, I'd be dead. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Teaching shapes lives. If you're thinking of becoming a teacher, our expert teaching advisors can give you the level of support you need to get one step closer to the classroom. Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching. Advisor support subject to eligibility.
New year calling for a new kitchen? Get to B&Q for up to 5 years interest-free credit with no deposit on our new kitchen range. Hurry, offer ends 2nd of February. You can do it when you B&Q it. Minimum spend £8,500 for 5 years interest-free credit. Credit subject to status. B&Q PLC is a credit broker and works exclusively with the Tarchi Capital UK PLC, both authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
We need to leave now. Monty, where's your other shoe? Some things in life are hard to find quickly. Your new boiler doesn't have to be one of them. With Swell Heating's online tool, find the perfect boiler from top manufacturers like Worcester Bosch in under 5 minutes. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Hello? It's time you swapped your daily grind for some sun, sea, and salsa! Sangria! Sun lounger! Siesta! Salsa! The dip, sandal, suntan lotion. We've done salsa, ain't we? In the Seychelles, Spain, or anywhere else in the world at surprisingly low prices. When you need a holiday, It's time to travel Republic. Book with confidence at Toll Protected.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Now you can get average speeds of 63 megabits per second of super-fast fibre broadband for only £20 a month for selected pay monthly customers. Just one of the amazing offers in the Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or in store today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Prices may change. 18-month term subject to credit acceptance and availability. Ends 30th of January. 61% of Superfast 2 customers receive sync speed above 63 megabits per second. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
The Norwegian Payday Sale is now on. Find great deals to Europe, North America or South America from London Gatwick. And with low fares to over 150 other destinations, the world has never been closer. Don't miss out. Start your journey at norwegian.com. Baggage fees apply. Travel periods vary by route. Visit our website for more details. Sale ends Tuesday.
True love lasts. Introducing the all-new Renault Clio, a car 30 years in the making. Start your Clio love story today for just $179 a month with 0% APR, now with a 5-year warranty. PCP Renault Finance Clio Play SEE 75 24 months deposit 2685 optional final payment 7714 subject to status over 18s T's and C's apply. Order by March 31st. Retail customers at participating dealers only. Warranty 100,000 miles or 5 years. Visit Renault.co.uk/warranty. Search Clio offers.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
It is 75 years to the day that the Red Army went into the death camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Before they left, much of the evidence was destroyed by the Germans. In particular, the gas chambers themselves were blown up. What is, without doubt, is that 1.1 million people perished in that camp. Today, approximately 200 survivors returned to Auschwitz. They came there from all over the world. And our correspondent, Rachel Venables, is in Auschwitz for us.
More than 200 survivors travelled to Auschwitz from around the globe to mark the 75th anniversary today. Many wore blue and white scarves. You could see them folded into triangles around their necks, a reminder of the striped prison uniforms they'd been forced to wear in the concentration camps. Now, by the time the Soviet army crossed these gates 75 years ago today, they found just around 7,000 prisoners left. By that point, 1.1 million men, women and children had all been murdered here in a site built for mass extermination to destroy anyone seen as an enemy to the Nazis' idea of racial purity. Erno Ebelas was a child in Birkenau who survived to see the day when the Russians arrived.
I remember when I was in just after a day's march from Birkenau, they put us down. Those who couldn't walk, they had to put down to a small camp called Althammer, and we stayed there for a few days. By the time we got there, I couldn't walk, and a German soldier helped me to walk into the camp. And within a few days, I heard screaming, "The Russians are here!" 3 Russian soldiers arrived, dressed in pure white. It was in January, and that's how I became liberated.
Well, the quote that's been chosen to mark today's event is, "We have a dark premonition because we know." And it's poignant, clearly picked, no doubt, to serve both as a reminder of what's happened, but also a warning. There's been much talk today about the rise in anti-Semitism and populism that we're seeing right around the world. Rini Salt was a teenager in Auschwitz, and she told me that what she sees happening today scares her.
That worries me so much. All over Europe, we never believed that these things will happen again. So the world hasn't learned from it.
What needs to happen to stop that from rising?
I wish I knew how to stop it. But God knows. I hope it will stop. I hope that people will live in peace with one another, no matter what race they are, what color they are. They should keep in peace, live in peace with one another, so perhaps the world will be a better place to live in.
Well, in the mid-afternoon, we had a service of commemoration and remembrance. It was opened by the President of Poland, and then there were a number of speeches by survivors who were here. They were really the guests of honour, sat at the front of this service in a room that was filled with dignitaries from countries right around the world. You had presidents and prime ministers in that room, as well as ambassadors, dignitaries and royalty as well. After the event, there was the planned walk down the train tracks, which are still in place just outside what's known as the Gate of Death in Birkenau, and there you had the politicians, the dignitaries there, some of the survivors as well, lighting candles and just pausing in a moment of remembrance at the memorial which is there.
Very powerful testimony there from Rachel Venables, LBC reporter who was in Auschwitz today. I'm absolutely going to make no political comment whatsoever on that, other than to say that she made the point there that prime ministers and presidents from all over the world attended this ceremony today. And I know a lot's going on. It's a big week, big decision tomorrow, the Huawei decision, Brexit happening on Friday. I do understand all of that. I'm just a little bit surprised that representing the UK government was Lord Eric Pickles, who is United Kingdom Special Envoy for post-Holocaust issues. We didn't even send a minister, and I do find that a little bit surprising, but I'll end that there. No comments on that, please. Let's get back to this big decision that's got to be taken tomorrow. Mike from Salford says, I run a reasonably well-known online business that just operates in the UK. Despite that, we get constant cyber attacks from China. We have to deploy expensive software to block these attacks. The Chinese don't play by the same rules. Let us go to Ian from Godalming, who is a new caller to LBC. Ian, welcome.
Hey Nigel, how are you?
I am well. So what do you make of it?
Well, a little bit of context for you. I've spent 35 years in the telecoms industry, and in the last 10 or 15 years as a senior executive working for some of the largest telco companies that supply all the infrastructure to the mobile operators, and I've competed against Huawei, and I've negotiated with them in their headquarters in China. So I have a reasonable understanding of what they're like and have a good understanding of the industry landscape. So the answer to your question is, should we move ahead with Huawei? My answer is no. They have competed, and they started about 15 years ago coming into the UK and other markets across Europe, and I've competed against them. And their main advantage 15 years ago was price. And they would be about a third of the price of the other competitors in that marketplace. So some of the companies that were mentioned earlier, Ericsson and Nokia and Samsung.
Yeah.
And the strategy from the mobile operator, whether that was a UK mobile operator or any other operator across Europe, was, we have most of our network with Nokia or Ericsson, but Huawei are really cheap, so let's get Huawei in, and they're a third of the price, so that will help us drive down the price of the other competitors. So they had a very strategic way of getting into the major networks across Europe. And they are a global dominant figure. If you go to their headquarters, it's quite amazing the size that they are. And you see their demonstration area of everything they do. And I looked at them and thought, well, this market's going to change in the next 5 to 10 years, and Huawei are going to be very dominant. So they're a company, they're credible. But I think if I was running my network, I don't think I'd be happy about entrusting really confidential data, whether that's both personal or government data, to a company that we don't actually need to buy from, because there's brilliant companies like Ericsson out there who do this.
And we don't know, Ian, we don't know who owns them. We don't know what their relationship with the Chinese government is. I mean, for all we know, there could be a front for the Chinese government. We just don't know the answer to that. But Ian, I mean, very great. Thank you for calling. It's fascinating to sort of meet someone who's been there and seen all this. If Boris Johnson comes up with a typical political fudge compromise tomorrow that says that Huawei will have part access to this but not full access to this, sort of half in, half out, does that actually work in your view?
I don't think it does. I think you need to be very clear about this. We've got national security at stake, and I don't think any of us would want to take any risks with that. I was listening to one of your earlier callers saying that there's a risk if we share with the States, and I don't accept that. I mean, firstly, the US outside of Cisco, their big telecoms companies no longer manufacture mobile technology equipment these days. So that argument, I don't think, stands up.
Ian, this is not the Americans touting for business. It really isn't. They have genuine security concerns, and I'm just fearful, Ian, that we do something. Very interesting. I mean, Tom Tugendhat, who's a Conservative MP for Tunbridge and Morning, who was on with me yesterday morning. Here on LBC, former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, he's running for re-election, and he makes this point, the real cost will come later if we get this wrong and allow them to run 5G. Control of data, he says, actually is about sovereignty. And why? I mean, I'm pretty cynical, Ian. I mean, I look at former prime ministers, former senior civil servants and former big business bosses who were in the pay of companies like this, and I kind of think the establishment's sold out to China, Ian.
I think so, and the other part of this is that the high-tech industry is littered with stories of working cooperatively with the Chinese and then finding out that all your intellectual property is being copied and reinvented, and suddenly your competitor, your partner who you're working with is your competitor tomorrow. And so I think we need to have a very high level of caution about entrusting really core and critical confidential national and personal data.
No, I couldn't agree more. Ian, listen, thank you. I want you to make me a promise, and that is the next time I have a telephone conversation that deals with the technical side of this, you pick up the phone and you call us, please. It is now 6:45. Time for the news headlines with Thomas Watts.
The government's urged anyone who's come to the UK from the Chinese city of Wuhan to self-isolate to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Holocaust commemorations have been taking place at Auschwitz to mark the 75th anniversary of the camp's liberation. A US prosecutor has accused Prince Andrew of being uncooperative over the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking inquiry. Rain across the north tonight, clear spells further south, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. In Golders Green, the North Circular Road westbound is blocked because of an accident at Golders Green Road, so there are long queues from Finchley High Road. On the M1 northbound, 2 lanes are shut because a car's broken down. That's between the M25 and Junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead. So the queues start around Junction 5 for Watford. It's very slow on the M25 clockwise because of an accident between Junction 25 for Enfield and Junction 26 for Waltham Abbey, so 1 lane is shut. And clockwise on the M25 is also very slow because of an accident between Junction 8 for Reigate and Junction 7 for the M23. On the trains, TfL rail, they have severe delays between Liverpool Street and Shenfield because of a signal failure. And London Overground still not running between Barking and South Tottenham.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 9, it's Holocaust Memorial Day, and we'll be asking you for your thoughts and reflections. And at 8, how easy is it to negotiate a trade deal?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
What is luxury? A state of mind, free time, a Caribbean vista, that place you love. It's more than you expect. It's perfection, it's opulence, it's service. The ultimate holiday. Luxury included all the time. The big sale is now on at Sandals, voted the world's leading all-inclusive resorts at the World Travel Awards. 2 hearts, 1 name. Sandals.co.uk.
This is the Survivalist Network. I told you it was coming. Britain is in the 4th throes of a zombie outbreak. If you do not have an impregnable vehicle, you can still access a Toyota Hilux Invincible. Pre-contagion, it was £199 per month with 0% APR representative. For the good of future generations, friends at your local Toyota Hilux Centre are maintaining that deal. Heed, hurry, haul. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £10,246 when financed through Access Toyota by 31st March 2020. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
You can't stop a sneeze. But with Dettol, you can help stop it spreading from surface to surface. Kill 99.9% of bacteria and cold and flu viruses living on your surfaces. Clean it, kill it, and help stop the spread of cold and flu with Dettol. See instructions on pack.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
January is tough enough without a broken boiler. Keep your home warm and working this winter with 2 years interest-free credit and your boiler installed by one of our expert engineers. Plus, you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And we can even quote by video call after work or on weekends. Get a quote by the 29th of February and you can also get £200 off a new boiler or £400 off for our existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
A big decision for Boris. Tomorrow the National Security Council meets and we're going to decide how much involvement, or any, will Huawei have in our new 5G network. I say no way, Huawei. Others perhaps disagree. I just wonder why we're taking a chance. Before I get back to that, the Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, he suggested that when it comes to trade talks following Friday, and using a football analogy, he says the EU will be the stronger team because we're 450 million and you're only 60 million. Is that right? So if you negotiate with China or India and they're both over $1 billion, are you saying that the EU would have no chance at all? What utter rubbish these people spout. But then, of course, Varadkar is an EU lackey and always does, as he's asked. Right, back to this issue. I thought the phone call before the break from Ian was really interesting. He made the point. The Americans do not produce this kind of technology on a commercial scale. Bobby on YouTube says the Chinese make everything. It's unavoidable. No, Bobby, there are other companies. I understand what you're saying. And if you see some of the container ships that now come here from China, 20,000 containers on a vessel, it's almost unbelievable. But there are other firms out there, Samsung, Nokia, etc., who would bid for this business. And even if the kit from Huawei is cheaper, well, maybe it's cheaper for a reason. Had anybody thought about that? Cameron is a new caller to LBC from Epsom. Good evening to you.
How you doing? You okay?
I am very, very well. So, I understand that you've got some involvement in this area as well.
Yeah, so I actually work for one of the Korean companies that you're talking about, tech companies that you're talking about.
Yes, okay, I think we know who you mean. Yep.
We're involved in, 5G at the moment as well. But firstly, I'll probably first off by saying I think 5G is definitely the future, and I think it's the way forward. I don't think it's ready yet for kind of everyday use. I think the use cases at the moment are really, really small.
Cameron, just there'll be a lot of people listening to this who know there's a big issue, but will be slightly bemused. Give me 30 seconds on the advantages of 5G.
I just think, at the moment, it's just kind of faster internet speeds.
Mm-hmm.
But forward thinking, you're looking at driverless cars, you're looking at people being able to do operations from the other side of the world.
Oh my goodness.
I've seen some other stuff that since then, we even did like a driverless car where there was a guy behind the back of the car and it was all being controlled via 5G. and kind of see that in action. It's amazing. Gaming is another one of them. For gaming, for the people that play games, 5G is going to take over that kind of. You're going to lose latency and stuff like that. So it's just going to change the way we do things.
Okay, fine. No, thank you for that, because that's useful, because people don't know.
But I think kind of on this whole kind of Huawei topic, I think.
Yeah.
I do agree with what you're saying.
Now, let's be fair, Cameron. You are working for a firm who are a direct competitor for this business, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, fine.
But 5G in itself is, like you say, it is extremely expensive. I think there is a lot of technologies that go behind it. I don't think it's as easy as just put up a 5G mast and away you go.
No.
But I think at the same time, when we're talking about kind of national security and stuff like that, if we look at the likes of other massive companies that have sold data, and they've got in trouble for it, it's happening every single day. So it's something that just needs to be monitored. I think when you're trying to pinpoint the Chinese and saying, Huawei, I just think it's a little bit unfair, personally.
So you don't think? All right, let's be clear about this. You don't think that Huawei could pose a threat to national security?
I think any company could pose a threat to national security.
Yes, but that would depend a bit on what kind of country they were, whether they were a properly democratic country or whether they were an autocratic country, hell bent on becoming ever more powerful in the world.
Yeah, I definitely understand, but at the end of the day, we've also got to understand China's a massive country, and a lot of our produce and electronics come from that country. A lot of stuff gets created there.
No, Cameron, look. China is very important. There's no question about that. The matter is, do we trust China? And we've seen again and again and again them stealing other technological ideas and using them. It's a matter of trust. Cameron, thank you for your call. I'm going to go to John now, another new caller to LBC from Manchester. John, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. I just wonder, why would we take the risk, John?
I know. But before I start, I didn't think I would ever be calling you up about anything other than Brexit, but here we are.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that there's almost an acceptance of Brexit now. Lots of negotiations to come on fishing and all the rest of it. But it's interesting, isn't it, that so early in Boris's premiership, he's facing this huge decision. Now, John, supposing you're Boris Johnson tomorrow morning, what would your decision be?
It would be a no.
Would it? Why?
Yeah, I work for a manufacturing company and we have a big presence in China.
Okay.
And just everything's slightly different in China. If we use the wrong type of encryption, they can't read, they block us. Any of the ISPs, China Unicom, China Mobile, China Telecom, the government has a stake in all of them. We have a little joke in our company going, it doesn't matter which one it is, they're all the same. We can't send internet traffic out of China to Singapore or Tokyo. We have to send it to a hub location in Shanghai and then out through the Great Firewall of China. They control it. They want to see everything.
Yes. So you just wouldn't take the risk, John. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's it. I don't see how Huawei would be any different to the rest of the ISPs or tech giants that they have there.
Okay.
And there has been ample evidence of where they do rip off other companies, and that's just the way they operate.
Yeah, and this stealing of ideas and mimicking of ideas. I mean, they're well known for that too, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, John, thank you. I'm going to keep going because it's amazing. We discussed this subject and I get practitioner after practitioner from the industry calling, including Steve, a new caller to this show from Bushy. Steve, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. I hope to see you there on Thursday. Just to get that one in.
Steve, I'll be there. Don't worry about that. And it's Friday. Friday.
I'm actually escorting somebody that definitely wants to go. But,
right. Well, we'll leave. But if you're going to come and celebrate,
anyway,
come on Friday, not Thursday. Now, Steve, you have got a minute. You have got 1 minute exactly to make your point.
Right. This is the point. This is a commercial decision. A lot of money has been spent dividing the interfaces between all these pieces of equipment. It's perfectly possible for Huawei to provide all the radio infrastructure without providing any intellectual property issue whatsoever, or even data access issue to the rest of the core network. The reason why it's not being done, even though these interfaces are decided and firm, is that it's much more reliable to get one organisation to provide the whole thing. because you can then legally say, you're responsible, get it working.
Okay.
Whereas if different companies do it, then there's an argument about who's responsible for it not working. And if you're in a race, that's the last thing you can afford.
And I can see, Steve, why that would be quite a good commercial decision. But if national security and data is threatened in any way, why would we take that risk, even if they were cheaper and more efficient?
Because, Nigel, if you look throughout the rest of what Chinese companies provide throughout our internet infrastructure, for example, never mind 5G, they've probably already got access to everything they need anyway, my friend.
Well, Steve, I don't doubt, and you're not the first caller tonight to make that point of the deep involvement of China already. Thank you very much, Steve, for your call. Thank you to all of you, especially those of you working in the telecommunications industry. I just think to do something that upsets our closest partners and friends in the world, that clearly is a risk of some kind, I think it's absolute madness. I'd love to see Boris say, no way, Huawei. I'd love to see Boris break from the way our governments have run since the days of Tony Blair and our establishment, the extent to which they've been bought off by China. I'd love to see a break to that. I doubt it's going to happen, but I'll be back with you tomorrow at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Payne, but up next, it's Ian Dale.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Today is Holocaust Memorial Day, and it's also the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Ceremonies have been taking place in Israel, Berlin, Britain, and many other countries too. Sheila Fogarty spent her entire show taking calls from listeners, giving their thoughts and memories relating to the Holocaust, and I'm going to invite you to call in at 9 o'clock to do the same. What does the Holocaust mean to you and your family? You can pay tribute to the memory of family members who were victims. 6 million Jews died, but let's not forget there were other victims too: Roma, gypsies, homosexuals, communists, disabled people, mentally ill people, Jehovah's Witnesses, members of political opposition groups. Let's remember all of them in our